She, Xiao Muling, is arrogant and domineering, a worldly cultivator who everyone flees upon hearing the wind. Once he opened his eyes, he woke up on a useless person. Although she was the legitimate daughter of the family and had a noble status, she was constantly used and framed by Bai Lianhua's cousin. In the end, she was stabbed to death by a scumbag. How can this pair of scumbags be allowed to live a peaceful life without avenging non-Shura? Cousin Bai Lian, take back everything she took. Play her to death bit by bit. The scumbag killed and destroyed everything he had. Let him live or die again. As for those who have bullied and humiliated her, she will not let them go. And she cultivates the supreme spirit technique, summons ancient divine beasts, refines unparalleled divine pills, traverses the sky, and looks down upon the 9 heavens. She's a waste, there are still geniuses in this world. Keywords of the novel. No pop-up window for the Heavenly Dr. Consort, complete collection download for Heavenly Dr. Consort TXT, latest chapter reading for Heavenly Dr. Consort. Chapter 1. See if she doesn't tear them apart. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. See if she doesn't tear them apart. Rolling dark clouds are pouring down, casting a gloomy shadow over the earth. Now, although it is broad day, it feels like night, followed by lightning and thunder, and pouring rain. In front of the high mountain rock wall, the girl gasped for breath and lay on her side on the ground. The dense rain fell on her slender body, causing her to ache and her body couldn't help but tremble. She maintained a forward crawling posture with both hands, her fingers sinking into the mud and her body stained with mud and water. She didn't care and slowly wriggled forward. She wants to live. Under the pouring rain, the words in her heart were firm yet unwilling. Blood kept flowing from above her heart, so badly injured that she should have fallen long ago, but she didn't give up and continued to wriggle forward bit by bit. Blood mixed with rainwater dyed her upper body red. The place she climbed over was covered in blood red everywhere. The girl looked up and showed a pale face. She stopped to take a little breath. From just now until now, the distance she has climbed out is only 1 foot, but she has already exhausted all her strength. Not willing to die like this, she wants to live on. Daddy, Daddy will save her. He is the person who loves her the most in the world. This sentence kept echoing in her mind. She gritted her teeth and continued to wriggle forward, flashing the bloody memories of the past in her mind. The handsome man held a long sword with a blank expression, but his eyes looked at her with deep disgust. I saw him lift his long sword and it pierced through the area above her heart. Then he drew his long sword, and a cold voice rang in his ear, I didn't pierce your heart with a sword. This is my last mercy to you. She looked up in confusion, as if seeing her distant and indifferent figure again. Fingers curled up, tightly grasped, filled with hatred. Mercy. If that person had shown her more kindness, they wouldn't have treated her like this. Immediately after the scene changed, her body trembled, sadness, anger, and hatred filled her heart. The graceful figure slowly walked up to her, and although she was in pain at the time, she still knew who was coming. At that time, she thought it was the person who came to save her. Just when she thought so, she heard the most vicious and cruel words in the world. Xiao Muling, the legitimate daughter of the Xiao family, has been prophesied as a genius since birth and killed by someone she likes. How do you feel? After saying these words, the visitor burst out laughing. The gaze fell on Xiao Muling's face, not knowing what she saw. The smile dissipated and instead became sharp. A useless person who couldn't gather spiritual energy from a young age, or an ugly monster with an ugly birthmark on his face, where do they see from? You are a unique genius of the Xiao family. After a pause, she laughed again and said, you must be curious. Why did Xuanchuang suddenly treat you like this? It was I who told him that you begged your father, the leader of the Xiao family, to enter the summoning domain, where the geniuses were gathered. I also told him that he could make your father take out the Xiao family jade unless you died. After all, it can bring back life and give people unimaginable strength. I saw it a long time ago that Xuanxuang had always wanted to obtain the Xiaojia Yubi, including getting close to you, just for the sake of Yubi. As for me, I have wanted you to die for a long time. After all these years of being around you, this useless and ugly person, do you know how disgusting I am? I didn't do anything. Your death has nothing to do with me. From now on, the only genius in the Xiao family is me, Xiao Xiao, and I won't have you as a useless person anymore. The sound of a light smile fell into her heart like a cold blade, and at that moment, she felt her heart shattering. Xiao Xiao. She always calls her sister the person. They grew up together, but all she hoped for was her own death. So, she can't just die like this. We can't let them succeed. Her nails and muddy water sank into the flesh, causing a painful sensation. As she was drowsy, she regained her consciousness a bit. She wanted to continue moving forward, but her breathing became increasingly weak. The injury was already severe, and with the rain hitting her, it only made her hurt even more. The hypocritical smiles of those two flashed through her mind, as she gritted her teeth and her anger burned in her heart. Uncontrollable eyes, slowly closing. But she was not willing to collapse in her heart, she wanted to live. Live. She was crazily craving, her breath gradually weakening until it finally disappeared, and she was powerless to stop it. The pouring rain came and went quickly, the rain stopped, the clouds dispersed, and the scorching fire and sunset dyed the sky red. In front of the stone wall, with Xiao Muling as the center, the water waves reflect the scorching sunset on the horizon, and the blood and water on the ground look even more vibrant. At this moment, the person lying in the blood suddenly opened their eyes, with a sharp edge shining in them. The black light condensed in her left ear, dissipated, and the black ear drill was worn on the earlobe that originally had no ear hole. If anyone sees this scene here, they will definitely be scared out of their wits. The moment before, Xiao Muling was clearly out of breath and her heart stopped beating. The next moment, she opened her eyes again, breathing smoothly, and her heartbeat became strong and powerful. Who's talking? Xiao Muling, who had reopened, opened her mouth in confusion and wanted to find the owner of the sound. However, this movement caused her body to ache. She can be certain that she was injured, and it was very serious. In all these years, it was the first time she had been injured so badly that she couldn't even move. Xiao Muling tried all her strength to get up, but in the end, she only moved her fingers. Damn it! With a low curse in my heart, the voice I just heard echoed back in my mind. I want to live. When she heard this sound, her eyes immediately turned black, and when she opened them again, it was like this. Taking a deep breath, she wanted to try to get up again when a handsome face flashed through her mind. The man held a silver long sword and then a sharp blade pierced through her chest. Immediately after, those vicious words suddenly struck, faces alternating in my mind, and memories surged up. As for me, I want you to die for a long time. I didn't do anything, your death has nothing to do with me. The woman showed her most innocent smile and said those words. Finally, she fell into the pouring rain, which patted her body and wounds, causing pain everywhere. The rain submerged her, and the cold frost eroded her body. She desperately wanted to live, using all her strength to crawl towards the direction of home, slowly and inch by inch wriggling towards it. The injury to her chest, combined with the chill of rain, made her increasingly powerless, her heartbeat becoming weaker and weaker, until she finally became desperate. Xiao Muling gritted her teeth, clenched her fists tightly, trembling with anger, and her anger was about to engulf her. Damn it! Roars echoed in her heart, and her eyes were as cold as ice. She, Xiao Muling, has always been domineering and domineering. When the world heard of her name as Shura, she fled quickly. How could she have suffered such humiliation? See if she doesn't tear them apart. Dang dang dang. Tian has opened a new article. Although she is already an bold greaseball, Tian is still nervous and looking forward to it. In addition, taking advantage of the new article, Tian has created a new group with benefits such as small theaters, which will be added to the legitimate group. Anyone who has read any of Tian's novels and has a full-text subscription can go to verify and add new legitimate groups. Because the finished article cannot be uploaded outside of the original group, perhaps some of the old article's extras will also be added to the new group in the future. Deduction Verification Group 7707311053. Welcome everyone to join the group Momoda. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. It's up to me to kill him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. It's up to me to kill him. Not right. This is not her memory, it is suddenly taken aback, Xiao Muling gradually realized. She lived on someone else. Jia. Strange laughter interrupted Xiao Muling's thoughts. 14 years. Finally, I found you again. The sigh fell, and the hoarse voice was filled with a strong sense of joy. The black figure walked up to her, covered in a black robe, only revealing a pair of eyes. He saw Xiao Muling with his eyes open and rubbing his hands, appearing somewhat excited. Xiao Muling frowned and looked at him, flipping through the memories that had just flashed through her mind. No. I haven't seen him. Who is he? 14 years. It seems that the owner of this body is exactly 14 years old. Now let me take a look at your heart. As he spoke, he walked over. Crouch down in front of Xiao Muling and take out a Xian Hei short sword. This short sword has no dark lines and looks very ordinary, but Xiao Muling looks very strange. Damn it. My body still can't move. Xiao Muling secretly lowered her curse, looked up at the person in front of her, her red lips lightly lifted, and a cold voice sounded. You want to die. The momentum unfolded, and in that moment, even the air trembled. The man in black looked at her cold eyes and was slightly stunned, then laughed again. Jia. It's really good. Not only was he not afraid, but he laughed even more proudly. Xiao Muling had a cold face, and seeing that he was not scared, his thoughts were running in his mind. She just woke up on this person for unknown reasons, not even figuring out what was going on. Wake up on this person now, this hasn't even started yet, it's about to die. Find a way. We must find a way. Don't struggle anymore, you can't escape anywhere, just give me your heart obediently. His gaze fell on Xiao Muling's heart, and his gaze became greedy. Gripping the short sword in his hand, he was still muttering words in his mouth. With your heart, everything is perfect. The short sword in her hand swung towards her heart. Xiao Muling watched as the sharp blade fell and decided to fight. She shouldn't die like this. At this moment, a red light shone on her body, shaking the short sword that was about to fall, along with the person, all flying away. The hurricane swept through, and people kept rolling on the ground, but couldn't get close to Xiao Muling. In an instant, powerful forces surged around Xiao Muling's body. Immediately after, a huge red formation unfolded beneath her. Crazy and intense power surged out, and the clouds were like a burning sky, suddenly shrouded in dark clouds. Roar. The roar of Warcraft rings through the earth. A hurricane surges, rolling between heaven and earth, blowing everything in the world, as if telling the world that a king has arrived. Dark clouds are thick and crisscross. If you look carefully, you will find that their shape is also a big array, and it is exactly the same as the red big array under Xiao Muling. The black formation occupies the entire sky, and the sky and earth are already dim when dark clouds are dense. However, the black formation in the sky is very clear and cannot be ignored. The blood under Xiao Muling's body connected and spread throughout the entire formation, infecting the entire formation with a dark and unknown color. The two formations are clearly located in different positions on the sky and earth, but they give people a feeling that they are already together. Between them, there is a powerful force that tightly connects them together. A strong and mysterious aura envelopes the earth, with changing winds and clouds, and a white giant shadow suddenly appears in the sky. The huge 9 tails pierced through the entire sky, and in an instant, the air suddenly trembled. Then, a snow-white giant fox appeared behind the black formation. The fox leaped forward and walked out of the black formation. After it appeared, the surging wind not only did not stop, but also became even more intense. The man lay on the ground groaning, with blood oozing from his mouth. When he saw the black formation in the sky and the snow-white figure, he gasped for breath. 9-tailed spirit fox. He immediately got up from the ground and was about to run away. Just as he turned around, a fox tail swept across and tightly bound him, causing the man to instinctively break free and try to escape. No matter how hard he tried, in the end he was just powerless. Xiao Muling kept her eyes open. She saw the formation condensed in the sky, but did not see what was condensed beneath her. Otherwise, she would have been amazed. Watching the sudden appearance of the white fox, Xiao Muling unconsciously moved his body. The body can move. She was startled and immediately sat up from the ground, looking down. Just as she stood up, the sky and the 2 formations beneath her disappeared without a trace, as if they had never appeared before. The blood hole in the chest stopped bleeding, and the pain was gone. The body was also full of pain, but now there is no feeling at all. Is everything okay with the injury? She was covered in dirt and bloodstains all over her body, and her face was covered in dirt, looking quite disheveled. The huge fox fell from the sky, standing not far away, its body shrinking bit by bit as it fell, but from this perspective, it still looks very huge. It flashed a bloodthirsty streak in its eyes as it was about to attack the person, when a cold and light voice came from it. It's up to me to kill him. Xiao Muling stood up, his lips pale and devoid of blood. Although her injuries have healed, she looks as if the wind will blow her down. She turned around and looked over, with an astonishing momentum. Her slender and thin figure suddenly became domineering and powerful, as if everything in this world could be destroyed in an instant if she wanted to. The snow-white fox turned its head and looked over, its eyes like the sea, deep and bottomless. I don't know why, but Xiao Muling wasn't afraid. Instead, she walked towards it. The appearance of this fox looks just like the 9-tailed spirit fox she had seen in ancient books before. She walked over like this, feeling that the 9-tailed spirit fox would not harm herself. As for how suddenly her body improved, she was also very confused. The 9-tailed spirit fox stared at her and saw that she was not afraid of itself at all. It walked over steadfastly, with a hint of mockery in its eyes. Immediately throwing the person out, the 9-tailed spirit fox moved to the side and its body shrank a lot. The person was thrown on the ground and rolled several times before stopping. At the moment he stopped, Xiao Muling happened to walk up to him. He saw Xiao Muling and his eyes flashed with malice. Anyway, get her heart first. He stood up and rushed towards Xiao Muling, and just then, the white giant tail swept away again. Pop! He was pulled to the ground, lying right beside Xiao Muling's feet, convulsing in pain. Xiao Muling looked at him coldly and said, "Do you want my heart?" "Why?" A curved knife flew from the fox's side and landed right next to Xiao Muling, piercing straight into the ground. The man looked at Xiao Muling, and a corner of his eye caught sight of the white fox next to him. His face trembled, and he slowly pointed his finger at her before laughing. Xiao Muling casually pulled out the curved knife inserted next to him, pointing the tip of the knife at the person. "Speak up. If you want to kill, you need to cut yourself." Xiao Muling's eyes were bloodshot, and he swung his sword and fell. "To fulfill you." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. She, never leave behind any future problems. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. She, never leave behind any future problems. Xiao Muling swung the curved sword in his hand and directly struck the person. A knife fell, and the flesh and blood were cut off like this. The person screamed in pain, but still didn't say anything. Xiao Muling saw him like this and continued to drop his sharp blade. But he gritted his teeth and refused to say a word. In order for him to speak up, Xiao Muling avoided the key points, and multiple injuries would not be fatal. I don't know how many knives fell, and the person in front of him was already flesh and blood blurred. It was only then that Xiao Muling gasped for breath and stopped his hand. After a slight movement of the knife, I was panting heavily and my body was too weak. The person opened his eyes in shock, with a painful expression on his face, and continued to smile and speak. I won't say it. Cold eyes fell on his chest, and a chill flashed through Xiao Muling's eyes. He clenched the handle of the knife again, and the tip of the knife fell down, piercing into the man's chest. Blood splattered and she slashed hard, causing the flesh and blood on the person's chest, along with their heart, to roll to the ground. She will never leave any future troubles behind. Xiao Muling took a step back and immediately looked up at the snow-white spirit fox. The nine-tailed spirit fox stood there, doing nothing, just his eyes exploring, clearly looking at her. Xiao Muling's breath calmed down, and she looked up at the nine-tailed spirit fox in front of her. She spoke, "Why help me?" After it appeared here, what it did was to help her, without any hostility towards her. Why? The white fox did not answer, and there was silence all around. The cold wind blew lightly, and the figure of the deceased person began to dissipate, transforming into a grey mist and disappearing in front of them. Xiao Muling frowned when she saw this scene. The nine-tailed spirit fox just looked at her, with an increasing amount of scrutiny in its eyes. Mississippi. Muling. Ling Air. The sound of shouting came, and Xiao Muling's body stiffened as she looked towards the direction of the sound. Mississippi. 3 words fall in my heart, memories rush through my mind, and one scene after another emerges before my eyes. Xiao Muling. These 3 words came to mind, and Xiao Muling seemed to hear the words to live again. Full of unwillingness, hatred, and anger. Xiao Muling clenched her fist and gritted her teeth tightly. She is also called Xiao Muling, but she is just the future Xiao Muling from another world. For some unknown reason, she opened her eyes again and was already on Xiao Muling, but this world was completely different from what she knew. This world is called the land of summoning spirits, where the strong are respected. As long as you are strong here, you can do anything. The weak only have a chance of being bullied. People who cannot practice cannot survive in this world. This type of person is usually referred to as waste by the summoning continent. Unfortunately, there aren't many of these types of waste, and it can be said that we haven't seen one for hundreds of years. It's just such a coincidence that the owner of her body is something she hasn't seen in hundreds of years. That kind of waste. In memory, it is known that people who can practice are usually referred to as Wuling Yuanshi. They practice with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, combined with the power of attributes in their bodies, to circulate the surrounding heaven in their bodies and transform it into elemental energy. And there is another profession called summoner, which mainly summons warcraft. Practitioners can cultivate into martial spirit masters, but summoners may not necessarily become. It all depends on talent. And chance. Out of 10,000 people, having one summoner is already remarkable. And the owner of this body, Xiao Muling, was born in a small country called Songling, which is located in the southeast corner of the summoning spirit continent. The Xiao family is a summoner family in Songling Kingdom. It is said that a long time ago, the Xiao family was the only summoner family in Songling Kingdom. But now the Xiao family is not as good as before, and with a legitimate young lady who cannot cultivate, everyone is laughing at her. Xiao Muling was born into a summoning family, so it's okay if he can't summon warcraft. He can't practice yet. If it were an ordinary person, he would have died long ago. But she has a good father, who is the head of the Xiao family and has always protected her. I also keep searching for ways to cultivate for her, so I often don't stay at home for a long time. When she is not at home, Xiao Muling will be bullied by her tribe. The most memorable moment is the friendly smile, and upon seeing the owner of that smile, an unnamed flame burns fiercely in her chest. That familiar and hypocritical face came to mind. She smiled so gently, but Xiao Muling felt extremely disgusted. Linger, let's go find Brother Xuan, let's go. Without waiting for her to object, he pulled her out of the house and walked up to the man. That man looked at her with impatience on his face. Linger, Xuan is waiting for us on the back mountain stone wall. You go over first, I will come over immediately. Remember to tell him about you also going to summon the domain, and he will definitely be very happy. She arrived here, only to receive a sword piercing through her heart. The woman in my memory is called Xiao Lianhua. Xiao Muling has always called her sister, but she is just a collateral member of the family. However, she has been extremely fond of Xiao Muling since childhood, so Xiao Muling trusts her very much and is willing to treat her as her sister. It's just that Xiao Muling never thought about how this sister, who has always been good to her, would kill her every day. Also, what kind of nonsense did she say? Xiao Muling likes Luo Xuan. It's clear that Xiao Lianhua loves it so much, but it's actually Xiao Muling. She uses everything she can to borrow a knife and kill someone. Clenching his fist, Xiao Muling's eyes were filled with a hint of killing intent. And that man, his name is Luo Xuan. He is a powerful genius who came from the summoning domain. It is said that the summoning domain is a significant force in the summoning spirit continent. That place only admits geniuses. Luo Xuan is a genius among geniuses and also the eldest disciple of the summoning domain. He ran to the Xiao family with a purpose from the beginning. Xiao Jiayu Bai, Xiao Kanglin did not say anything to Xiao Muling duo, so the only thing I know from memory is that it is the treasure of the Xiao family. In order to obtain the precious treasure of the Xiao family, Luo Xuan forced Xiao Kanglin to take it out. He tore off the gentle and refined face of a gentleman and killed Xiao Muling. How shameless! Mercy! Kind to you, sir. The anger in her heart burned again, and Xiao Muling's eyes were covered with frost. Xiao Muling, I will help you seek revenge. I will make those two people feel like life is better than death. Ling air. The sound of shouting continued to ring, and figures kept approaching from afar. Xiao Muling immediately regained consciousness. Thinking of the nine-tailed spirit fox, Xiao Muling turned his head to look over. The nine-tailed spirit fox disappeared at some point. The sound of the call was getting closer and closer, and she looked down at herself. She didn't know how to explain. Hurry up and throw the weapon away, then lie down on the ground and close your eyes. And what's going on with that man in black? Not very attractive, it can be said that it cannot be found among ordinary people. Found Xiao Muling for 14 years. And why did he want Xiao Muling's heart? Xiao Muling thought this way and immediately fell into a warm embrace. Linger, Daddy is here. Xiao Kanglin picked her up, covered in dirt, without any hesitation. Xiao Muling's heart seemed to have been hit by something. This father really loves his daughter. Patriarch, what's wrong with Mississippi? The voice of inquiry was not worried, and she could hear schadenfreude. Don't worry, don't get angry, they'll take some time to settle some accounts. Xiao Kanglin glared at the people and quickly walked back. After everyone left, the nine-tailed spirit fox reappeared and looked over here. Xiao Muling from the Xiao family. The elegant and seductive words fell, and the white fox turned around and walked away, beautiful and elegant. The update will be fixed at 9 a.m. in the future, Momoda, end of this chapter. Chapter 4. Daughter Slave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Daughter Slave. In the exquisite room, 5 or 6 people surrounded a middle-aged man, each of whom spoke earnestly. Clan leader, let Lord Fengxian go and see Liang Xiao first. Miss, there's nothing else to do. Liang Xiao fainted at home. She is going to summon someone from the domain and cannot have anything to do. Miss, there won't be anything wrong. You can rest assured, clan leader. Let Lord Fengxian go and see Liang Xiao, after all, she is the true hope of the family's future. From what they said in the tone of voice, it seemed as if Xiao Kanglin would be heinous if he didn't let anyone see Xiao Liang Xiao again. Xiao Kanglin's face turned pale, and he clenched his fists under his sleeves, listening to their words without saying anything. Out of the corner of his eye, he looked at Xiao Muling on the bed, enduring. He doesn't want to get angry in front of Ling Er, it's just that he's on the verge of exploding. And these few of them seemed unaware of his raging anger, still not hearing of him, urging him to let Fengxian go and see Xiao Liang Xiao. Xiao Muling lay quietly in bed. She was carried back to the Xiao family by Xiao Kanglin, and the sky outside had also darkened. Her clothes were changed by a maid. During the time when she was changing clothes, Xiao Kanglin caught the chief pharmacist of the royal family. As for the people who speak to Xiao Kanglin, they are all from the same lineage as Xiao Liang Xiao. Since they came in until now, she has completely heard what they said. Xiao Liang Xiao fainted. Xiao Muling sneered in his heart. If Xiao Liang Xiao really died, he would immediately get up and whip her body and burn paper. With a boiling murderous intent in his heart, Xiao Muling took a deep breath, temporarily suppressed the murderous intent, and slowly opened his eyes. The man who came into view was the one by the bed with white hair but no wrinkles on his face. Is this the wind in their mouths? I heard he was just a guest at someone else's house, but his father forcibly pulled him over. Who are you? A soft voice sounded, and Xiao Kanglin, surrounded by a few people, immediately stood up and pushed them away. The room was instantly quiet, and those few people looked over with disgust on their faces. Surprisingly woke up. How good it is to die. Linger, where does it hurt? Tell Dad. Xiao Kanglin rushed over, pushed aside Fengxian standing by the bed, squatted down, and the expression in his eyes and face was all worried. Fengxian covered the area where she was pushed, with a helpless expression on her face. Her daughter was not injured at all. Why are she so nervous? Watching him searching for him in a lively manner, those who didn't know thought his daughter wanted to. There was no blood on Xiao Muling's face, and Xiao Kanglin slowly extended a trembling hand to caress her head. At the moment when Xiao Kanglin rushed over, Xiao Muling's heart was hit hard. The man with a worried and anxious face in front of him, is it her father? Squeezing her lips, she didn't know what to say for a moment. Yes, in my memory, Xiao Kanglin was the one who loved Xiao Muling the most in the Xiao family. Even though she was a waste, this father's love for his daughter never diminished. He did everything in his power to cultivate Xiao Muling. Every time he heard any rumors about a way to cultivate, he would immediately go out to search, but every time he returned disappointed. The people of the Xiao family rejected Xiao Muling and said they wanted to send her away from the main house, but they were all blocked by Xiao Kanglin, trying to keep her at the main house in order to protect her well. Once Xiao Muling leaves the Xiao family, without Xiao Kanglin's protection, he can only wait to die. All the past flashed through her mind, and Xiao Muling unconsciously curled up the corner of her mouth, revealing a sincere smile. Dad, I don't hurt. This is the person who truly loves her. No pain. The people behind heard this and their eyes lit up, and they immediately walked over. Clan leader, you can let Lord Fengxian go and see Liang Xiao. Miss herself said it doesn't hurt, so it's okay. Miss, take a good rest and let Lord Fengxian go and see your sister Liang Xiao. A few people speak to each other, with a false smile on their faces but a hint of malice in their eyes. It's a pity that she has nothing to do. Xiao Muling looked at them, looking at the expressions on their faces, with a frost in his eyes. Cover the frost from the eyes, and immediately cover them with a layer of mist. She carefully reached out her hand and tightly gripped Feng Hyun's hem, her expression looking very aggrieved. Coupled with her pale face, she looked like a broken doll. Go see Xiao Yangxiao. Dream it. If she dies so easily, you can still talk nonsense for half a day. Feng Xian felt the hem of her clothes tug, lowered her head to take a look, and saw the slender little hand. She looked up at Xiao Muling's gaze. When he saw her eyes, a hint of surprise flashed through his eyes, and then he looked at Xiao Kanglin. He checked her, and although she was not injured, he heard that she was covered in blood when she was brought back. Xiao Clan Chief, I need to check Miss again. After saying this, Feng Xian herself was also stunned for a moment. Strange, how could he help Xiao Muling speak today? Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Xiao Kanglin, and Feng Xian sighed in her heart. Forget it, let's just consider it for his face. Xiao Kanglin was also heartbroken for such a daughter who couldn't practice. Xiao Kanglin saw her weak appearance, but the people next to her were still pestering him. He suddenly stood up. Get out of here. A roaring voice came, and the sound inside the room came to a sudden halt. Feeling Xiao Kanglin's anger, several people immediately shrank their necks and showed a hint of fear on their faces. Xiao Kanglin is the strongest person in the Xiao family and also one of the strongest people in the Zhangling kingdom. With such a roar from him, only these few members of the Xiao family can bear it. Yes, yes. They hastily responded a few times and immediately turned around and walked out, not daring to linger in the room any longer. After they left, Feng Hyun turned her head to look at Xiao Kanglin, looking at her trembling figure in anger, and let out a light cough. Xiao Kanglin immediately turned around and looked over, quickly asking, Feng Hyun. Is there anything wrong? Feng Xian looked down at Xiao Muling and smiled slightly, little girl, can you let go of your hands now? Upon hearing these words, Xiao Muling timidly let go of her fingers and withdrew into the bed. She looked so pitiful in this way. Father, I'm fine, she whispered. The ferocious anger on Xiao Kanglin's face had already disappeared when he looked at her, and it was so gentle again. Feng Xian looked at him like this, her eyes almost popped out of her sockets. This is Xiao Kanglin, the leader of the Xiao family who is known as the Tiger and Wolf. The speed of turning his face was also too fast. Just now, he looked like he was about to eat people. When he looked at his own daughter, he immediately became a gentle and loving father, and his heavy breathing was restrained. She's fine, probably just scared, Feng Hyun said lightly. Linger, you say. Xiao Kanglin seemed to have completely ignored his words. Feng Xian. He doesn't even believe in himself, what are he doing here? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. She, afraid of him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. She, afraid of him. Xiao Muling took all of this into her eyes, with a slight smile on her lips and a smile in her eyes. Dad, I'm fine now. Xiao Muling finally spoke out. If it weren't for her saying it's okay, her father wouldn't have let it go. She really had nothing left. Strangely enough, after the fox appeared, all the injuries on her body healed. But what's going on with that fox? Xiao Kanglin finally breathed a sigh of relief, and the stone hanging in his heart also let go. However, Feng Xian looked back at Xiao Muling with confusion and asked, little girl, what did you see? With so much blood on your body, you were scared unconscious. I heard that when I was brought back by Xiao Kanglin, the bloodstains on my clothes were frightening. I thought I was seriously injured, but after examination, I didn't see the wound. So whose is this blood? Xiao Muling's heart immediately pounded. Yes, with so many bloodstains on her body and no wounds, how can this be explained? If we say now that Luo Xuanxuang hurt her, it's because Xiao Yangxiao wants to remove the Luo Xuanxuang she used, I'm afraid no one will believe it. After all, she doesn't even have any scars on her body, not to mention the bruises, it's hard to justify. Furthermore, Luo Xuanchuang is a genius in the summoning domain, which is the largest force in the eastern continent of the summoning spirit continent and one of the reasons why various countries respect it. She may believe her father when she says this, but outsiders will only think that the waste of the Xiao family is crazy. If my father really goes to find Luo Xuanchuang because of her words, he will also be in danger. To protect my father. This thought surged from his heart, and Xiao Muling was suddenly taken aback. At this moment, she understood that Xiao Muling was still thinking about Xiao Kanglin's reasons at the last moment. I will protect my father well. The oppression and dullness in my heart seemed to have loosened a lot. She wanted to tell Xiao Lianhua that she couldn't move Luo Xuanchuang or even Xiao Lianhua now. However, there are no injuries on her body now, and when the time comes, Xiao Liangxiao's pulse will still be broken. Beating the grass to scare the snake is not good. Xiao Kanglin and Feng Xian looked at her, waiting for her answer. Feng Xian was purely curious as to where the blood on her body came from and how she could faint. Xiao Kanglin was completely afraid that she would suffer internal injuries or something. If someone hurt her, he would tear that person apart. With a blink of an eye, Xiao Muling shrank her head into the blanket, revealing only a pair of eyes. When I was in the back mountain, I saw a blizzard and lightning, which scared me unconscious. I don't know where the blood on my body came from. Weakness said a sentence, and she didn't forget to yawn. Then she looked at Feng Xian, with a hint of panic in her eyes. Dad, I'm so tired. Xiao Kanglin heard that his daughter was tired, and when he saw Feng Xian's frightened expression, he completely ignored Feng Xian's astonishment and pulled him outside. She's afraid of him. He just helped her. Feng Xian thought so and was already pulled out by Xiao Kanglin. Ling Er is tired. Need to rest. Watching Xiao Kanglin pull Feng Xian out, Xiao Muling smiled. She didn't even notice that her smile had never been so warm before, and her heart was also so warm. I said Xiao Kanglin, you. Since Ling Er is fine, you can go back. So what did you bring me over for? Do you know that the regent will also come tonight? It's rare that the regent has finally returned and rarely appears. Why don't you go quickly? My daughter is more important. You. Xiao Qing, Miss needs to rest and not be disturbed. Yes, the calm voice answered, and Xiao Qing stood upright outside the door like a pine and cypress. Xiao Kanglin, your Xiao family is like this now. With the help of the Regent Wang, all crises can be temporarily resolved. I understand, let's go now. Hurry up and leave. Xiao Qing, big and small sisters wake up and look for me. Remember to send someone to Jun Wang Mansion to call me. Yes. Xiao Kanglin. The sound outside the door walked away, and Xiao Muling let out a breath. She immediately sat up and looked at her clean clothes, sighing in her heart. I changed my clothes, and I'm fine. This body is also very healthy, indicating that Xiao Kanglin has put a lot of effort into her. Regent. Her impression of the regent in her memory seems to be only fear. It is said that this regent is not a royal family. He was saved by the late emperor of Tsangling Kingdom and stayed there. He is the god of war of Tsangling Kingdom and a more brutal person than a fierce beast. He became the regent queen, appearing less and less every year, and now he only appears once in a few years. There are also rumors that he eats human flesh, drinks human blood, and even piles of white bones are stored in the regent's mansion. Thinking of this, Xiao Muling shook her head, not afraid of these things, but it had nothing to do with her. It seems that the situation in the Xiao family is really not good now. How can I protect my father like this? The Xiao family was once again wholeheartedly protected by my father. If she habitually touched her left earlobe, and a hard touch struck. Her eyes lit up, and she immediately got out of bed and walked to the mirror. You came with me too. She looked in surprise at the black ear drill on her earlobe. The ear drill looked ordinary without any highlights, but Xiao Muling was very happy at the moment. Thinking of her own world, it is a very developed modern world. Many people live ordinary lives, but in ordinary life, there are always extraordinary things and some extraordinary people hidden within ordinary people. She was adopted by her master since she was young, and her master praised her exceptional talent from a young age. She is sure to achieve extraordinary success in the future. After her master passed away, she did indeed achieve what her master said, possessing supreme status and power. Being able to achieve that much is related to this ear drill, the master said. The ear drill has been following it since childhood, and she probably was born with it. And ear drills not only have power, but also a space where many useful and good things are stored. Since it follows, she can find a way to cultivate. In her memory, Xiao Muling couldn't condense spiritual energy because every time she absorbed it and condensed it, the spiritual energy would quickly dissipate inside her body. If spiritual energy is compared to water, then her body is like a bamboo basket, and no matter how much water it carries, it will flow out. This birthmark. As her gaze touched half of her face, Xiao Muling couldn't help but sigh. She had been wearing a mask outside just now and didn't pay attention. Now that the mask was off, she understood why everyone called Xiao Muling ugly 8 monsters. The left face was pitch black, really scary. Reaching out to cover her left face, Xiao Muling looked at her delicate right face and suddenly felt a bright light in front of her. If there is no birthmark, this is definitely the beauty among beauties. In her previous world, cultivators had extraordinary appearances, and even among ordinary people, there were often people with stunning appearances. In such an environment, she also has some facial control to some extent, but it is purely appreciation. After all, beautiful things can make people feel happy. Now this face unconsciously moving the hand, the earlobe gently rubbed against the ear drill, and the black light under the feet spread out, forming a formation under the feet. Xiao Muling's eyes flashed with light, and then the scene in front of him had changed. A small stream flows in front of me, surrounded by trees, and the mountains and rivers are intertwined, making it a paradise in the world. Looking around, Xiao Muling turned around in surprise, and the towering pagoda caught her eye. Didn't it used to be villas and buildings? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Mysterious Space. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Mysterious Space. Previously, here were all modern and exquisite villas, and everything inside those buildings was high-tech. Nowadays, they have all become ancient buildings, exuding an ancient atmosphere everywhere. The once towering high-tech villa has now become an ancient tower. Amazing, everything in this space can be changed according to different places and times. Xiao Muling walked slowly in the space, looking around at the scenery. The beautiful scenery caught her eye, and she didn't enter lightly. This was indeed her space. Lingyuan Pool. A pond over 10 zhang wide beside the stream caught the eye, and mist emanated from the water, giving off a feeling of fairy mist. If she has some thoughts, continue to move forward. How do you feel? Like it has become much smaller? It's similar to when I was a child. Wait. Xiao Muling stopped and looked around, measuring the size of the space. Is it because this body has not been cultivated, so the space has returned to the same size as when she was a child and had not yet practiced? Everything, start from scratch. She reached out and rubbed the center of her eyebrows, gradually calming down. Anyway, it's all about living again, and this place is also starting over again. It's nothing. After walking through the space, she became even more certain of this fact, but now she has accepted it. Before walking to the tall tower, she looked up at the towering ancient tower, surrounded by a mysterious and ancient atmosphere. She couldn't help but want to get closer when she came here. White fingers rubbed against her chin, and Xiao Muling stood at the door thinking for a moment. Then she decisively walked over and pushed open the gate of the tall tower. A powerful and ancient aura rushed towards us, carrying a faint fragrance. This kind of fragrance is her first time smelling it, subtle and invisible, yet constantly present. She quite likes it. As soon as she walked in, she saw the stairs on the second floor. She didn't rush up, but walked towards the side of the stairs. After walking up the stairs, she saw several rooms, each with its door tightly closed. Walking to the first door, it reads, Spirit Technique Martial Arts. Walking to the second door, it read, Potions and Elixirs. On the third door, Summoning. Summoning. Xiao Muling looked at the words on the door and remembered the nine-tailed spirit fox, as well as the nine-tailed spirit fox appearing as a formation totem in the sky. Is that the legendary summoning array? So the nine-tailed spirit fox is what she summoned. Summoners may not be as easy to become, so it's better not to think too much. There is a fourth door next to the third one, but nothing is written on it. After that, there was endless darkness. Xiao Muling turned his head and felt like there was something else ahead. Space has transformed from modern to ancient, becoming completely unfamiliar. For this once familiar space, she is now starting to become familiar and understand it again. She knew that this space would only open up some places, unlock some things, and obtain many unexpected good things as her strength improved. So she didn't walk directly to the second floor, nor did she walk further into the darkness. Although the space changes greatly, some essence will not change. Although this space belongs to her, her strength is not strong enough to force anything, and it is still quite rebellious. With a soft click, she stood in front of the first door, looked up and tried to push it open, but found that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't push it open. She walked to the second door, the third door, and so on. Xiao Muling. Her current physical condition makes her very anxious to find a way to cultivate. If she can achieve cultivation, then she will have the most basic capital to do what she wants to do later, but now these doors cannot be opened. Is it necessary to cultivate and possess strength in order to drive? Lianhua Pool. Xiao Muling suddenly thought of the pond outside and immediately turned around to walk outside. She had just walked out of the ancient pagoda when the door closed. She glanced back and strode forward. She will definitely open those few doors. No matter how many doors are left behind, she will make it appear and open it. Standing in front of Lianhua Pool, she looked down at herself and then took off her shoes and walked inside. Just as I stepped into the pool, a cold and piercing chill suddenly rushed from the soles of my feet to the bottom of my heart. Intense pain hits from the heart, and a scorching sensation spreads rapidly throughout the body to every corner of the body. Her legs trembled for a moment, and she almost fell into the pool due to the sudden pain. With a pale face and a cold sweat on her forehead, Xiao Muling stood in place. She looked at the clear and bottomless pool water and gritted her teeth. The pool water is clear to the bottom, but when you enter, it is as cold as ice. The chill falls into your body and immediately turns into a blazing flame, surging inside your body. For cultivation. These words came to mind, although painful, she continued to move forward. She was like walking barefoot on an ice blade, her feet pierced by the blade and bleeding profusely, but there were no wounds on her feet. Struggling to the edge of the pool and sitting down, the severe cold pain struck again. This time, it was not just my feet, but all the places soaked in the pool water. Inside her body, it was like a scorching fire, and she felt like she was soaked in molten slurry. However, the cold frost and chill on her body reminded her that she was in the midst of the cold winter and 12th month. Her lips turned white in pain, and Xiao Muling watched as her body was partially submerged in water, continuing to move deeper. Just a part doesn't work, we need all of it. I estimate that this pool of water is going to change her constitution. Although upon entering, the body seemed to have been rolled by molten slurry, the place where it was soaked in the pool water was clearly different from other places. So, yes. All. She struggled to move her body and walked in from the side of the Lianhua Pool. It was only a few steps away, but it took her a long time. During this process, she felt that the time was even longer. In the end, she held her breath and completely immersed herself in the pool water. The blazing flames suddenly burst out of the body, and the icy blade cut through every part of the body. Can breathe. She was a bit surprised to be able to breathe in this pool of water, but the pain hit and she didn't have time to be happy. Her body completely softened and she writhed in pain in the water, but the pain never subsided. Her body feels like a sharp icy blade falling on her, slicing off her flesh and blood pieces by pieces. She didn't know how long it had been, but the piercing cold frost and the scorching heat that melted through her body made her feel like life was more than death. She clenched her fists tightly, gritting her teeth and persevering. Due to clenching her fists too tightly, her nails were plunged into flesh and blood, but these pains were nothing to her anymore, and she persisted in the water. Even if this kind of pain makes her feel like death, she will persist. In this world, if one cannot practice, then nothing is possible. She has people she wants to protect and doesn't want to be bullied in this world, so she wants to be strong. She wants to destroy, torture and kill people, and doesn't want them to live more nourished than anyone else. She wants their future days to be hell. And in this world, only the strong have the right to speak. Dear friends, move your fingers to collect Momada, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. Spiritual Cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Spiritual Cultivation. At the bottom of the Lianhua pool, the girl lay there wearing a white veil, which flowed with the water. She lay calmly at the bottom of the water, as if she had fallen asleep. At this moment, a buzzing sound spread from the bottom of the water, and a golden light flashed past, reflecting on the pool water, shimmering like a wandering golden dragon. The girl opened her eyes and swam out of the water. The beauty is enchanting, and the water is like a hibiscus, charming and charming. However, all of this must be done without considering the birthmark on the other half of her face. Xiao Muling walked out of the pool in pain and lay down on the nearby grass, panting slightly. Die in pain. The pain will not diminish here and will continue to persist. Looking at the time, she probably didn't go in for long, but she felt like it had been a long time. It seems that she will often soak in this pool in the future. This little time is already her limit. Previously, there was no spiritual element pool in the space. Is it because of her physique that the space knew she needed it, so it was specially created? Xiao Muling knew for the first time that this space could still be like this. After all, she didn't need it for talent before. She sat up, the pain gradually dissipated, and waves of warmth emanated from her body. She looked down and found that her clothes were already dry. Is it? She sat up in surprise, following the method taught by Xiao Kanglin in her memory, and began to gather spiritual energy. A gentle breeze blew, and breath flowed from heaven and earth, enveloping her body and immediately flowing into it. Spiritual energy flows into the body and falls into the elixir field. The quiet and gloomy elixir field is as bright and brilliant as the dawn light falling in the dark night. She didn't stop, absorbing spiritual energy, and the elixir field became brighter and brighter. However, this cultivation is no longer like before, and the absorbed spiritual energy will be lost again. When Dantian was completely bright, she opened her eyes and looked down at her hands. This Lianhua pool really allows her to cultivate. Accidentally seeing the horizon, it's night outside the space, but it's day inside, as if every time I come in, it's day. Thinking that although she could cultivate, she did not yet have a suitable spiritual formula and needed to improve her strength level as soon as possible, she immediately put aside her thoughts. Now she should be able to open the door, whether it's martial spirit or summoning, she needs to practice. There are also potions, and my current memory is not very familiar with them, but it seems that they are also important in this world. Xiao Muling walked into the ancient pagoda again, reached the door of the first door, and lifted his hand to push it over. The door, which was difficult to push open just now, was easily pushed open this time. The light inside was as bright as the day outside, and rows of shelves caught the eye, with various bamboo slips and ancient books placed on them. She walked over to pick up the first book, opened the bamboo slips, and rows of words came into view. Wuling is also known as Yuanshi or Wuling Yuanshi because it relies on spiritual energy to transform into elemental energy. Unable to become a summoner, cultivating elemental power can become a martial spirit elemental master. All things remain unchanged in their lineage, whether they are martial spirits or summoners, they are divided into 8 attributes. Gold, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, thunder, and ice. Whether you want to cultivate a martial spirit master or become a summoner, you must first determine your own attributes before you can start practicing martial arts techniques and summoning warcraft according to your attributes. The levels of Wuling Yuanshi are: Quenching Qi, cultivating martial arts, cultivating spirit, Yuan Wu, Wuling, Wujuan, Wuwang, Wusheng, Wuzuan, breaking martial arts, becoming Yuan. Each level is divided into 12 levels, and when using the martial arts spirit formula for each level of promotion, the strength also increases by 1 point. Qing Yuan, what else is clearly behind Qing Yuan? Xiao Muling wanted to see more clearly, but the following text became blurry. She fully opened the bamboo slip, and there was nothing else on it, it was all blurry. It seems that here, only martial spirits can be seen. Those summoned should go to the 3rd door and find the suitable martial arts spiritual formula for my cultivation first. She said and put down the spiritual formula, walking aside. If you don't show her, it means her current strength cannot be unlocked. Xiao Muling walked around here but couldn't find a suitable one. At this moment, golden light intertwined in front of me, and golden bamboo slips caught my eye. Xiao Muling stopped and looked at the bamboo slip with outstretched hands. The bamboo slip fell into her hand, and just as it touched her finger, it turned into golden light flowing into her body. Does the spiritual formula automatically appear? 2 words flashed through my mind. Xiao Muling. Those 2 words disappeared from my mind, and then a few lines of words appeared. Xiao Muling, the spirit of the sky. The fundamental distraction technique and martial arts skills of Wuling are 2 parts, which are further divided into 12 layers. The heart technique and martial arts skills are suitable for any attribute of Wuling Yuanshi. Heart technique can be silently recited during cultivation, and can accelerate the cultivation of martial spirit master. The spirit of the sky. She went to practice first, then turned around and walked out. She walked to the door and looked at the 3rd door. First cultivate the martial spirit Yuan master, at least if someone comes to me, I have the ability to fight back. The summoner will see later. Standing next to the Lingyuan pool again, Xiao Muling felt a slight weakness in her legs. To cultivate here, it is estimated that the speed will be much faster. She gritted her teeth, her gaze fixed, and walked into the pool. Despite being mentally prepared, she still trembled with pain. When she entered the water completely, a severe pain struck and she almost fainted. Suppressing the pain, Xiao Muling silently recited the heart technique of Qiongling. She didn't know how long it had passed, but simply silently recited the heart technique. Although the pain did not diminish, she seemed to be more able to bear it than before. At the same time, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered from all directions and was absorbed by her. She lay at the bottom of the water as if she were asleep. The strength in the body condenses and spreads to various parts of the body, but it is not similar to the 8 attributes mentioned in ancient books. Xiao Muling immediately opened her eyes, endured the pain, swam through the water, and walked ashore. What's going on? She can't practice anymore. Feeling inexplicably nervous, she immediately crossed her legs to explore Dantian. In the Dantian, power operates, and she can feel a force flowing in the Dantian, but cannot see it, nor can she know its attributes. It is like a ghost, flying and flowing within her body, she can feel it clearly but cannot see or capture it. It is completely different from the powers mentioned by Xiao Kanglan and Xiao Muling in memory. And also, the strength in her body is walking backwards. I don't know what happened, but what matters most is whether she can cultivate or not. Xiao Muling reached out his hand and tried to gather the power of the martial spirit. The undulating dragon in the air came, and the power in his palm was gathering. Sure. Indeed, it is possible. But the strength inside her body is indeed going against the tide, and she can't see any concentration of strength, she can only feel it. What exactly is going on? Wait. Wuling Yuanshi is able to gather strength so much, which means that although her body walks backwards, she can not only practice, but also practice faster than ordinary people. However, after just practicing for a while, her current strength has reached the level of spiritual cultivation. Pup pup, a sudden heartbeat sounded, and Xiao Muling, still in surprise and confusion, looked up in confusion. Where did the heartbeat come from? End of this chapter. It's best not to encounter him again in chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's best not to encounter him again in chapter 8. Xiao Muling raised her hand to cover her chest, suddenly feeling a little restless in her heart. Wait. She suddenly stood up and turned to look around. The frequency of this heartbeat is the same as hers. She was surprised and repeatedly confirmed that the heartbeat she heard was not her own. With confusion in mind, Xiao Muling walked forward, and as she walked out, the force surrounding her body dried her clothes. Passing through the forest garden, the heartbeat became increasingly pronounced. Walking to the edge of the space in front of the stone wall, Xiao Muling looked up at the mossy cliff and pursed the corners of her mouth. Turning her head to look at both sides, she looked back at the stone wall and carefully examined it. There were no moss on the wall, and there were faint carving marks. This is. Previously, there were no stone walls in the space, but now there are still carvings on the stone walls that appear today. At the moment when Xiao Muling's fingers touched the stone wall, black light suddenly flowed around her body. The light rushed into the stone wall through her fingertips, and when Xiao Muling saw the flickering light on her fingertips, her eyes flashed with surprise, wanting to stop and look. At this moment, the force in front of her sucked her in. She instinctively wanted to break free, and in that moment, darkness completely enveloped her surroundings. Turning around, there was darkness all around, and the stone walls were long gone. And she could feel the power coming layer by layer like a vortex, standing in the center of the vortex. Damn it! What kind of ghost is this? Xiao Muling cursed low in his heart and immediately became more cautious. This is the first time such a situation has occurred in space, and I don't know what I will encounter later. It's better to be careful. The darkness faded, the vortex disappeared, and a door appeared in front of Xiao Muling. She hesitated for a moment, then opened the door and a chill rushed towards her. The cold ice hall caught the eye, with nothing else inside and cold ice everywhere. Where is this? Is there such a place in the space? The intense heartbeat in her ear continued, and I don't know if she had been listening to it all the time. Xiao Muling felt that her heartbeat had also increased. Let's take a look before we talk. I always need to figure out where the heartbeat came from, and this heartbeat rate has always been the same as hers. Following the sound of her heartbeat, walking through a long passage, the colder the surroundings became. Xiao Muling was still barefoot and had very few clothes on her body. She hugged her body and rubbed it, continuing to walk forward. Fortunately, I have some strength to support myself, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to get here. What the hell is that place? With a soft click, she quickened her pace. Find out where this is earlier and leave earlier. She steadfastly walked forward and finally walked out of the long passage into an ice chamber, which was the coldest. Is this the innermost part? Looking around the ice room, Xiao Muling was about to say that there was nothing here, only layers of cold ice, when a naked body caught her eye. Damn it! She took a cold breath and instinctively took a step back, but her eyes did not move away. Lying on the cold ice was a man, a very good-looking man. With just one side face, it was already eye-catching. He is like falling into this world, noble, sacred, and inviolable. Even if he just lies here, he exudes an unapproachable majesty. It's like a fallen ice and snow elf, clean and holy, making it unbearable to approach, as if a little closer to him is a kind of blasphemy. It's simply the ultimate beauty in the world. Xiao Muling looked lightly at his perfect and impeccable profile, hesitated for a moment, and then walked over. The face became increasingly clear, and when he walked up to him and saw it clearly, Xiao Muling's eyes were tinged with a smile. It's really perfect and impeccable. If you just look at it for a lifetime, you probably won't get tired of it. I have seen many beauties, but no one can match him. As she spoke, she reached out and poked him in the face. The sleeping person seemed unaware of what she had done, without any movement, and she also felt a little relieved. The regular fluctuations in a man's chest indicate that he is just sleeping and not dead, but the speed of his heartbeat is a bit fast. When will there be such a place in my space, and such a man? Is this really her space? Xiao Muling thought this way, then lowered her head and reached out to touch her heart, then looked up at the rise and fall of his chest. After hesitating for a moment, she extended her hand. The hand fell on the undulating surface, and the scorching temperature hit, causing Xiao Muling to frown slightly. It's so hot. Just touching like this feels like reaching an extremely hot place, rather than this place shrouded in cold ice. No wonder he had to lie inside this ice layer, otherwise he would have been burned to death by this temperature long ago. The heartbeat sounded in my ears, one was his and the other was my own. Both heartbeats were beating at the same time, and the frequency was completely the same. Xiao Muling was slightly taken aback, his eyes flashing with surprise. The sound of his heartbeat is his. But how could his heartbeat match his own? With her eyes drooping and her heart filled with doubts, she casually withdrew her hand and accidentally touched his body. She looked over again, then raised her hand to poke and pinch. The feel is pretty good. The figure is also impeccable. Xiao Muling moved her gaze to look at the face, and at that moment, the man who was originally unconscious opened his eyes, a pair of eyes as deep as the sea. Wake up. 2 words came to mind, and Xiao Muling immediately withdrew his hand and quickly stepped back, with a loud, lying down, sound in his heart. This series of events happened in just a few seconds, but she had already retreated 2 zhang away. Xiao Muling felt that this moment was the fastest and most agile of her movements since she came here. The man turned his head to look at her, his emotions alternating in his eyes. You. His breath suddenly became dangerous, and those eyes were staring at her like beasts, as he moved his body and was about to get up. Xiao Muling blinked his eyes, his thoughts running rapidly. I thought she was unconscious, but she just fell asleep. Although she had never seen such a beautiful person before, especially appreciating it, this kind of thing also needs to be divided and combined. He exuded a dangerous aura in front of him, constantly telling her that she couldn't beat him now. There's only one now. 36 strategies are better than walking, run. With this idea in her mind, she had already turned around and ran back. As soon as the man sat up from the ice bed, he saw Xiao Muling's back quickly escaping. He struggled to get up and sat back, frowning and reaching out to help his forehead. A low growl sounded inside the ice chamber. Xiao Muling, can you escape? The voice spread from the ice room, but Xiao Muling had already walked away and did not hear it. Otherwise, she would have been shocked if this person called out her name. She would have been even more careful in the future. Firstly, it's best not to encounter him again. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. He is the only summoner. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. He is the only summoner. Running into the door that came in, Xiao Muling quickly closed it. Just as she closed the door, the darkness receded and the scenery of the space reappeared in front of her. She was taken aback and turned to look back. The stone wall was right there, surrounded as usual, as if nothing had happened. Did you just come back like this? Pointing at the stone wall, she felt even more puzzled in her heart. The angry face flashed through her mind, and she hesitated to reach out and touch the stone wall, panting slightly. I won't follow, will I? Fingers touched the stone wall without any movement, nor did they suddenly envelop themselves in darkness like before, with a door appearing in front of them. She breathed a sigh of relief and breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, I ran fast. But what's going on with this stone wall? That place is not a space. It looks like it doesn't really look like space, but since it's not in her space, how did she suddenly leave there just now? And that man, who is he? How can his heart rate be the same as hers? Reaching out and caressing my heart, I couldn't hear the heartbeat I heard earlier. The last angry face came to mind, his eyes are purple. When I was in the ice room just now, I only focused on leaving without considering anything else. But this man is truly the best in the world, the most stunning in the world. She has never seen someone so beautiful before. Taking another glance at the stone wall, Xiao Muling was certain that the man would not follow. She was ready to go back and continue her cultivation. Although the power in her body comes in the opposite direction, she can indeed practice. Since there is no other way to cultivate like this, let's continue. As for why this happened, we can only find the answer later. Clan leader. Wait for me for a while, I'll go in and take a look at Ling Er. Yes. Upon hearing a sound coming from outside the space, Xiao Muling immediately left the space. Returning to the room, she looked outside and found that it was already daylight. As Xiao Kanglin was about to enter, she quickly returned to bed. Just as he sat down on the bed, Xiao Kanglin had already pushed open the door and walked into the room. Dad, she calmed down and called out with a slight smile. Xiao Kanglin saw her get up and quickly walked over. Why are you getting up? Are you hungry? I'm hungry. I'm really hungry. After a night of hard work and suffering such severe injuries, my iron body couldn't withstand it. Xiao Kanglin looked at her like this and smirked, I'll have someone prepare. He turned around and left, and Xiao Muling grabbed him. Dad. Xiao Kanglin turned around and felt a little nervous. What's the discomfort? Did you see the regent last night? They said they wanted to solve the current situation of the Xiao family, but with the regent's words, it's not that easy. I can't say anything without seeing the regent king. When I saw the regent king, I also asked him to agree and help the Xiao family say that sentence. Xiao Kanglin was taken aback for a moment, then recovered and said, Did you hear it all? She nodded. The regent did not go last night, but Ling Er can rest assured that his father will take good care of the Xiao family and Ling Er. As he spoke, he reached out and touched Xiao Muling's head. The regent is not easy to see, he appears countless times throughout the year. Last night he said he would come, but not coming was also expected. However, he will definitely guard the Xiao family well. Only by ensuring the safety of the Xiao family can he protect his Ling Er well. Seeing the sadness in his eyes, Xiao Muling didn't say anything, just responded. If there were no regent, she would figure it out on her own. Although her cultivation is different from ordinary people now, she can indeed cultivate and has reached the spiritual cultivation level. Being able to cultivate and with strength, she can protect her father well. Dad, I have one more question. How many summoners do we have in the Xiao family? She asked seriously. Why did you suddenly ask like this? Xiao Kanglin was puzzled, as she had never cared about these things before. He didn't mention it to her either, afraid that saying these things would make her sad. I am my father's daughter and the eldest lady of the Xiao family. It is only right to care about these things, Xiao Muling replied with a smile. Xiao Kanglin walked over to the bed and sat down, smiling gently. The only one in the Xiao family who is a summoner is my father, he said. He's the only one. Xiao Muling's mouth twitched, is summoners so rare? They don't say that Xiao Lianhua has great talent and is also a summoner. So, Xiao Lianhua is not a summoner. Xiao Kanglin reached out and lightly flicked her forehead. Linger, where have you learned from what my father taught you? Have you taught it before? Maybe taught, but she doesn't remember these things. Alright, take a good rest first. Xiao Kanglin thought she was curious and didn't think too much when she asked these questions. Dad, I want to go to the Zhonglo. The Zhonglo contains various books and weapons of the Xiao family, as well as some precious and rare things, and so on. Perhaps she can find the answer to her cultivation in this area in the Zhonglo. I don't know when I will go to the hidden building, let him know first, and then I can go directly. Zhonglo. Xiao Kanglin was a bit surprised. She never went to places she deliberately avoided. How could she want to go now? I think I'll go and take a look when I have nothing to do. Previously, Xiao Muling didn't like going to Zhonglo because she couldn't practice, and she knew this. As for her now, she wants to find out the reason for the reversal of her physical strength and also wants to learn about the Xiao family through the hidden building records. She has just arrived in this world and there are still many things she needs to know. Zhonglo is a great place. You can go if you want. It's also good to take a look. Xiao Muling smiled and responded, staring at Xiao Kanglin. In her memory, her father was always very gentle in front of her, never even speaking loudly. It seems that last night was the first time she saw her father's angry and roaring appearance, which was also extremely worried about her. Wait here for a while, Xiao Qin will bring you food. Dad has something else to attend to. Xiao Kanglin stood up and left, followed by Xiao Qin who had been guarding outside all night. Xiao Muling lay down and watched them leave. Just as he was about to re-enter the space, the sound of knocking on the door rang out. Knocking. Xiao Muling was about to make a sound and the people outside had already pushed the door in. With a slight frown, she lay down and closed her eyes. The person came in without waiting for her to make a sound, obviously thinking she hadn't woken up yet. The person who walked in like this may not just be here to see her, so let's take a look first. The visitor saw that Xiao Muling had not yet woken up and walked to the bedside, revealing the poisonous light hidden in his eyes. Contemptuous words rang in my ears, with a strong malice in my tone. You ugly monster, why don't you die outside? Under the blanket, Xiao Muling clenched his hand beside him into a fist, and anger surged in his heart. Are you dying outside? So many people want her to die. Since that's the case, I'll help Miss Liang Xiao solve you. The person said and took out a dagger and stabbed it towards Xiao Muling's heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Murder and Mouth Suppression. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Murder and Mouth Suppression. The blade struck, and Xiao Muling suddenly opened his eyes. One hand blocked the swinging arm, and the other hand landed on the incoming person, shaking her back. She flipped over and sat up, her cold gaze sweeping over someone. The person stumbled back and the palm landed on her abdomen. She let out a painful cry, and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Seeing Xiao Muling sitting up, she was shocked and her eyes widened. Big, Mississippi. She's not unconscious. Her thoughts were already chaotic, but her mind was blank. Xiao Muling stood up and looked at his hands, which were indeed at the level of spiritual cultivation. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the person lying on the ground, and she put away her thoughts. Lianhua. Her maid. She still remembers that this maid was given to her by Xiao Lianhua, and it was very convenient to say what to use. It was very thoughtful, so sending it to her made her happy. Kill her. It's really easy to use and really enjoyable. Very loyal. Big, Mississippi. Lianhua shouted, her thoughts spinning. What she said, this useless person has heard it. She made an immediate decision, her eyes flashing with malice. Since it has been exposed, why not just follow Miss Liang Zhao's instructions and kill her like this? Anyway, she's just a waste. Kill her, and Miss Liang Zhao will take care of herself when the time comes. Lianer let out a contemptuous snort, clenched the dagger in her hand, and once again swung her arm towards Xiao Muling, dropping a sharp blade. Out of the corner of her eye, as the sharp blade swung down, Xiao Muling did not panic or show any intention of avoiding it. She lifted her hand and slapped it over. Pop! This slap condensed strength and landed on Liener's face before her sharp blade fell. Liener fell to the ground with this slap, and the dagger in her hand was scattered beside her. As she lay on the ground, half of her face, which had been beaten, immediately swelled up. How could it be? Lianer was completely stunned by this slap. She didn't expect Xiao Muling to fight back. He could fight back. After all, although her talent for cultivation is not very good, she is also a practitioner. In front of her, Xiao Muling should not have had the strength to fight back, but now it's not as she thought. With his eyes drooping, he glanced at the dagger next to him, and Xiao Muling kicked it aside. Slowly approaching Lianer and squatting down, Xiao Muling's face showed a smile. She slowly reached out her hand and brushed over half of Lianer's swollen and red cheeks. The place that was originally hot and painful felt a gentle touch, accompanied by tingling pain. Lianer only felt a chill seeping into her heart from the soles of her feet. Xiao Liangxiao asked you to come. What she just said was to help Xiao Liangxiao solve her problem. Lianer saw the smile on Xiao Muling's face, and her hair stood on end. She didn't wear a mask, her dark half-face was gloomy and terrifying, like a ghost returning from hell. But when she thought of Xiao Liangxiao's words again, she suddenly regained confidence and snorted disdainfully. Xiao Muling, Miss Liangxiao is such a good person that she has been constantly bullied by you, a useless person. She even humbly begged the clan leader to take you to the summoning domain. How can I let you implicate Miss Liangxiao again? She went to see Miss Liangxiao, but because she was Xiao Muling, Miss Liangxiao fainted from her heart. Such a useless person, she has been pestering Miss Liangxiao. Every time she is bullied, the clan leader will come back to protect her. Miss Liangxiao has suffered a lot of injustice. Now I still want to implicate Miss Liangxiao and pester her to summon the domain. Xiao Muling, it's just a drag. Waste. Since it's a waste, she helped Miss Liangxiao solve it. Anyway, if she dies as a waste, there will be no loss to the Xiao family. Bullying her, Xiao Liangxiao. Xiao Muling sneered sarcastically. It turns out that for so many years, in the eyes of these people, it was Xiao Muling who was bullying Xiao Liangxiao. They all killed Xiao Muling, and it made people feel like Xiao Muling was bullying her. What a flourishing white lotus. Pretty, it's so beautiful. Since you don't want to be with me, why don't you leave early? Xiao Muling's hand landed on her neck as she finished speaking. Where is her purpose? Lianer had already spoken up to this point, everything had already been exposed, and she was not afraid to continue speaking. Anyway, she's a waste. She should know that if she implicates Miss Liangxiao, she should commit suicide and apologize. Among the Xiao family, only Miss Liangxiao is the most prestigious. I'm here to help Miss Liangxiao watch over you. The clan leader wants you to inherit the family jade, you useless. Bang! The door was kicked open, and at this moment, a water blade flew past Lianer's heart from the front, dissipating and blood gushed out wildly. She writhed her body in pain, with an incredulous expression on her face, and soon lost her breath. Xiao Muling looked at the dead Lianer and slowly withdrew his hand to look up. Xiao Liangxiao stood there and quickly hid the murderous aura on her face as she looked over. Xiao Muling stood up, one hand behind her, and her gaze remained calm as she looked at Xiao Liangxiao. Killing people to silence them is really clever. Xiao Jiayu Bai. It turns out that this thing is not only being watched by people outside, but also by countless eyes in the Xiao family. But in her memory, she had never seen Xiao Jiayu Bai before. How did these people feel that Xiao Bai was with her? Xiao Lianhua looked nervous and quickly walked over, holding on to Xiao Muling's hand with both hands, her eyes filled with grievances. Lingner, she's talking nonsense. I never let her stare at Yubi. Yubi belongs to you, and I never thought about it. Although Lianhua was chosen by me specifically to see that she can indeed serve people, I didn't expect her to be so ruthless in her pursuit of Yubi. Fortunately, she didn't feel at ease coming over to take a look. Otherwise, everything would be irreparable. If Xiao Muling had died yesterday, she wouldn't have had to do this today. Now that Xiao Muling is still alive, she can only live with him like before. Even if she is extremely disgusted by Xiao Muling, she can only endure it. Patiently waiting, the day when my father takes over the position of clan leader and she becomes the legitimate daughter of the Xiao family. Xiao Muling lowered her eyes and looked at the hand being held, revealing disgust deep in her eyes. Don't admit it to yourself. She hasn't said anything yet. Let's see how many times Xiao Lianhua has said about Xiao Bai. Her cold eyes lifted, and she met Xiao Lianhua's gaze. Seeing his cold gaze, Xiao Lianhua was stunned for a moment, almost unable to hold back the grievances on her face. The corners of her mouth curved and she maintained a smile. She gently probed and asked, Ling Er, what's wrong with you? Don't you believe what your sister said? Did you hear something yesterday? Impossible. She didn't die at the time, but she was sure to faint. What can she hear? Xiao Lianhua looked at Xiao Muling, still gentle and smiling, as if she was the most perfect person in the world. What a blooming white lotus. The performance is really similar. Xiao Muling sneered in her heart, then she took a step closer to Xiao Lianhua, raised her hand, and in the next moment, her fingers curled up and grabbed Xiao Lianhua's neck. End of this chapter.